I can't hear anything.
Ryan, we are presently muted since we're still 10 minutes shy of our start time so that we can
Oh,
chat amongst ourselves without being recorded.
excellent. Perfect. Time enough for me to dump blooming foods. I'll be back.
Perfect. All right, we have audio and video on, so I will call to order this regular meeting of the Monroe County Solid Waste Management District's Citizens Advisory Committee. This is the third Thursday of November. It is the 17th, 2022. We are at 5:15 p.m. Vice Chair will please call a roll for us.
Yes, Joania,
Here.
John Arnold,
Here.
Ryan Conway,
Hey, y'all.
Ryan Edwards here, Lily. Here. Bradley Lucas,
Here.
Andrew Manley,
Here.
Nelson isn't here, and Paul's not here. Okay,
All right, so we do have a quorum.
we do.
Thank you. And I will show our agenda on the screen share. Was distributed by email on Tuesday, November 15th, and uploaded to Dropbox as well. Are there any objections to adopting the agenda as shown on the screen share? All right, seeing none, that is adopted. We'll go on to our first order of business, which is approval of the meeting minutes for the October 20th regular meeting. Are there any corrections to the meeting minutes? Right. I will note that I did make several notes. I think I'll pull them up on the screen share as well, just for reference. They are in comments from in Word, I should say, on the Dropbox file. Here. Most of them were just clarifications or precisions to language around the conversation about membership. And I think they all are. Indeed. But there's one typo as well. That was in, okay, that was in the retreat notes. So I'll make a suggestion to modify that later. All right. I'll say, are there any objections to approving the minutes with the edits shown in the screen share? All right, seeing none, those minutes are approved as amended. So that will bring us on to reports from the district. If we could start with that, Tom.
Let's see. Trying to think of what all I reported on last time. Getting into a hectic time of year, we're ramping up for the end of the year, so it's getting busy and there's some additional stuff going on this year as well. We'll talk about with the rebranding. But see, I think so the board or the council did adopt our budget. I think I reported that last month. At the board meeting last week, the board did approve the job descriptions for the two new proposed positions, support staff for landfill compliance and household hazardous waste, and the waste reduction specialist position, and then did adopt the salary ordinance that included those two positions. So, so we have those on the books for 2023, and we'll, as soon as I can get it all together, we're going to go ahead and advertise for those positions and start the process of filling them, just with the understanding that if by some fluke the ideal candidate is the first one through the door and everything, that they cannot start till after the first of the year. Don't have wages appropriated for that position until then, but we did want to go ahead and get the process started, just given where the labor market is and stuff. The likelihood is going to take a while to find the right candidate, particularly for the waste reduction position. So but we have those going. I guess unfortunately due to weather, we had to cancel our America Recycles Day observation or celebration that we've done the past few years, where we've had a musical group spend a little bit of time at each of the recycling centers on that Saturday closest to America Recycles Day, but since it was 30 degrees and flurries, we tried to postpone it till next Saturday, and it's supposed to be in the upper 20s, low 30s next Saturday. So I think we're gonna move on till next year at this point. So unfortunate that it seemed to get for what that did seem to get a very positive reception from the customers that came to the sites while they were playing. But be that as it is. But anyway, like I said, we're coming into the end of the year. Budget numbers all look good. We anticipate that we'll have substantial reversions on the budget for unspent appropriations as we have in years past. All the finances all look to be in order coming down to the end of the year. And I just because it was discussed during the budget process, I did just today get the health insurance quotes to do move our health insurance renewal date to January 1 from October the 1. And they look pretty good. So I asked to confirm a couple of things, but get that stuff back and we'll really look at that. But looks real promising that we'll be able to do that. And that's a key thing for me, because it was I always hated having to insurance rates go up on October the 1st, and so that means your paycheck is $20 less now, or whatever it would have been. So that'll avoid that. At least those premium increases will coincide with wage and annual wage increases, which may or may not offset the premium difference. But it's better than where we've been. So. Yeah, like I said, and beyond that, most of the rest of the stuff we can talk about when we do rebranding. So happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Don. Any questions on the reports? I will say I'm glad to hear that the quote for the starting insurance at the first of the year is good news.
Yeah,
I know it's been a while.
I didn't. I guess it's busy time. I'm getting my days mixed up. I guess the CAC has not been updated since we all attended that digester update meeting.
Correct.
Okay. So I guess one other big item that the city's consultant for their anaerobic digester study had an update meeting a week and a half ago. 2 weeks ago. That myself and Joe and Ryan all attended. Had a pretty good discussion about that at the board meeting, and they're now the consultant is asking CBU to look at Dillman Road as a possible location on that, and which may or may not complicate the district's participation depending on how CBU elects to deal with that. And obviously, any change from the district's perspective would be up to the board, but we did agree to participate in a study to look at the feasibility at Blucher Pool. And if that study comes back and says the Dillman's a better option, that's one thing. If the study starts to move toward specific siting facility at Dillman Road, then the board may have to address if it's something they want to continue to contribute to or not. But they provided a lot of information at the meeting. I apologize, I don't have the numbers here in front of me like that, but I think that they've identified 180 potential feedstock sources that they've been trying to contact and assess material availability, willingness to bring it to the facility, and what kind of volumes. Have not gotten a whole lot of response. I think about 30% actually responded. And I think it was less than half of those expressed an interest in using the facility if it were to be built. So, and I know Ryan, has got a lot more information because he types faster than but he was typing furiously during that meeting, and he had a lot to say about it and to add at the board meeting. So I don't know if I can defer to Ryan to finish my report on that, or if you want to wait and do that till later in your meeting.
I think that sounds reasonable since we're doing an update on it now and it does
Okay.
pertain to the district content. Ryan, if there was anything that you wanted to contribute, you're welcome to at this point.
I'm good with that. I don't have my notes. I'm still pulling up my computer, just getting inside. But generally the idea was like Mr. McGlasson said, it was a pretty weak response on their survey results. I know that they originally started with like a 50 or 60 mile radius and they had to bump that out to 75 just because they weren't getting any hits. I think there were actually 4 places of any sizable volume that expressed actual interest, but 2 of them were on the condition that it would actually make their current hauling costs less expensive. And given that the wastewater treatment plant existing would not affect hauling charges, they will likely not be interested, as that will not give them the discount that they're hoping for. Other than that, I mean, it's also the problem of, I mean, a direct quote from one of the lead consultants was saying something to the effect of, they don't have, the city would need to stand up new relationships with farmers that have significant acreage in order to then get those farmers, convince them to apply for permits for biosolids application, Class B biosolids. And so those relationships don't exist. We don't know if there are farmers with interest. Yes, it's a general statement to say that, in this state there is interest, but that's not to say that nearby there is. So again, I mean, there would need to be subsequent research to really proof this out, to see if it would be really worth the investment of taxpayer money. But on the field of dreams kind of theory that if you build it, they will come. I mean, I know that's not how I make my investments, and I would hope that public monies would not be invested in such ways either, but clearly that's also a personal opinion. I can circulate my notes. I have about 19 pages of them for anyone that is interested. But apologies, I'm trying to sign in one-handed here and it's not going too well, but I'll try to post some more highlights later, but I guess that's the gist of it.
Yeah, that's Ryan said, when you jog my memory, the Class B biosolids are, that's the solid waste product that comes out of the digester, and there are criteria established to allow for land application of those primarily in agricultural settings. And like Ryan said, in what they showed, in the Monroe County and near vicinity, they did not find any record of any land application permits, in what would be considered, I guess, a reasonable distance to deliver them to. So like Ryan said, that they would have to work with the farmers and agricultural industry, in that area, and, work with them and they're willing to seek out the land applications. And then the other, option for those is to work with, is to find a local composting facility to work with, that those could be delivered to, allow the compost more, then they could classify it as a Class A biosolid, which is much less restrictive on these.
Yes, Ryan, I see you have a hand up. Go ahead.
And to follow up on that specifically, is that IDEM would have to specifically permit whatever facility locally to take that and compost it into a Class A solid. But for example, as we understand, like with our compost facility, we had to get special riders just to be able to do food waste, and of course neighbor approval as well. So given that the Good Earth on the south side and ourselves and the Catholic Retreat Center out on the west side are the only registered facilities in this county, and really within probably at least an hour and about hour and 15-minute drive. I don't foresee IDEM really seeing any of these sites as being suitable for Class B biosolids. I mean, maybe Good Earth on the south side because it's more industrial and they lean towards like industrial logging and stuff, but I don't think they're going to want to handle that. But again, they ain't me. Times can change, and if it was lucrative enough for them, perhaps with some kind of deal with the city to take it, then that is definitely possible. But it's something established in the compost production economy, so to say, that making and selling compost itself isn't what makes money. It's tipping fees and it's hauling. So as much as we would like to be interested, unfortunately we're not. But that's not to say that Good Earth wouldn't be. But we'll have to see.
Yeah, I'll note that I kind of shared those same sentiments where I acknowledge that all of the data at the meeting was preliminary, so it wasn't necessarily reasonable to make absolute conclusions on it, but it didn't seem based on what was presented, like it's a very viable option so far. But I know that once the final report is released, that's when it will be the best time to actually review what their conclusions are. And then I believe there will be town hall meetings that will follow, where if anybody wants to become involved in the process of responding to the report, that will be when there's an opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, I think that based on what they've presented so far, I mean, they're gonna have to figure out a way to get more information and a better response rate from potential feedstock sources they've reached out to, or they're just not gonna be able to provide any data that's worth trying to make any sort of a decision on.
And they did evaluate different options, starting with just using the wastewater treatment materials. So that would be excluding having any other external materials. It's these really, gosh, what were they? High volatile, the H,
Oh,
gosh, Ryan, if you remember the acronym, H.
High strength organic waste.
There you go.
High strength organic waste.
Yes, HSOWs. That's what they were looking for, basically for gas production.
yeah.
So that's what the interest is, to be able to make high quality biogas from this. And those are necessary for the high quality biogas. So you could do the anaerobic biodigestion with just the existing water, like wastewater product, but that was something like off the top of my head, only 20% of the like energy return as it would be if you actually had all of these high strength organic waste inputs as well. So that's the component that really makes this of interest to anyone. And that's why it's important and why there's focus on the aspects of having sources and having haulers and having low contamination, because that really makes this project potentially interesting. And although you could do it without, there would just be a much lower return, therefore not a very good investment.
I'd like to ask a follow-up question concerning, Ryan, you said, oh, this is Andrew, by the way. Ryan,
Hey
you
there.
said that land application sites, they did a study to see if there were any permitted around the county or just the general area.
Well, I said that, and yeah, they, if
Oh,
I remember it right, I mean, they put a map up that highlighted where they found land application permits active, and
well, generally, the wastewater treatment plant would, there's two types of permits. There's site-specific and non-site specific. Site-specific permits, well, both really, the wastewater plant generally takes responsibility for permitting, working with the farmers and filling out all of the compliance reporting on the farmer's behalf. So to base it on there not already being sites in the area.
somebody could be taking a non-site specific permitted biosolid,
Well,
and that wouldn't show up that it's being applied.
it would still show up. It'd still be a registered site. But what I'm trying to say is that the wastewater plant in the area would be the one that
Doing the
gets the
seeking permit.
that would make the sites permitted. So that would explain why there's no
Maybe
permitted sites in the area.
Close enough that it's worth hauling it to the field.
Yeah, so that would fall onto the wastewater plant.
And I believe that's what the map that was presented showed, was the wastewater treatment facilities that were
That
permitted.
had permitted, okay.
Because what I was anticipating as well was a search for sites, like agricultural sites that were permitted to receive it. And that's what I thought the map had meant. So I asked a clarifying question, and it was actually, those were the wastewater facilities that were permitted and not the sites. I'm not sure that
There is a map of individual farm field sites.
Really?
Well, yeah,
because it didn't seem like they had that or were aware of it.
okay, well, and it's updated regularly, so I will forward that to y'all once I.
Yeah, that'd be great.
I would be interested in that.
Yeah,
Thank you. Yes, Ryan Conway.
It's also the case that the lead consultant noted that it would take 600 acres per year to apply Bloomington's biosolids, which
Right.
again sounds like quite a stretch to me.
Well, yeah, but I also question how they come up with that number when they don't have the data to show how much material we're going to be bringing into the facility, because that's going to directly impact the solids that's coming out on the back end.
Right.
Truth.
Yeah, so conclusive information will be, that's what I'm anticipating at this point. I mean, it was good to have an idea of where things are going and sort of what they were proposing, but I think it'll be most interesting once they actually release a report, really assess what they're concluding. Were there any more thoughts or questions on the preliminary information or the presentation? All right. Seeing none, I think that concludes the report on the district. There were no other questions related to other aspects of the district report. All right, very good. So we will go on to report from the chair. I will first say that at last week's board meeting, the board did follow through with the request for removal of Mason Greenberg, so he is no longer a member of the CAC. And they decided to table the consideration for Nelson Schaefer's membership for the January meeting. So that is pending. The other item that I was going to mention was just the biodigester feasibility study meeting update, which we covered. And then there are a couple of items that I'll add to reports of special committees. So at least for the chair report, I'll say that's that and see if there are any questions.
Now, does Nelson know that he's under consideration for removal?
He was present at the meeting, yes.
He was present?
He was present at the board meeting, I should say. So he is aware. Other questions? All right. That concludes the reports from the district and chair. Our third item is reports from special committees. We'll start with rebranding. Tom, do you want to field that one? Do you want me to
You
pick it up?
go right ahead. You're the chair.
Okay.
I'll fill in if I need.
Okay. So essentially, I guess the next step that has taken place is we did also discuss this point with the board at last week's meeting, just to make sure that board members were, no pun intended, on board with the direction that things were going. And there was just, I guess, general consent that it was in the right direction.
There were no objections.
Perhaps, yeah, that's a better way to put it. There were no objections to either the logos that were presented or the slogans. There were a couple of board members who specified that they liked the slogan that is featured on the logos. I can't even recall off the top of my head which it is. I think it's "Our World, Our Responsibility." So
You wouldn't put it here, bro.
That said, I think the next step is that there will be final confirmation from the choice of the marketing consultant for producing the rebranding recommendations. And we'll provide the content that the subcommittee has generated so far to that party after their quote is accepted.
Yeah, I have a handful of consultants that do marketing, rebranding that I've identified that I will send 5-year plan. Some of the materials have been generated at this point and seek proposals and quotes / cost estimates from them. To guide us through this process and help us with logo design and creation, slogans and whatnot. Just get those back, and then those would have to be presented to the board for them to elect which one they want to go with. We're off and running.
We're not anticipating spending $10 million for B1G, are we?
No, not unless you're gonna make a substantial donation to the district.
All right, any other questions? Rebranding updates. All right, so that will bring us on to actually our second subcommittee, which has gone a little bit inactive recently, and I wanted to provide a document that we had been working on. So it's the implementation and evaluation guidance subcommittee. And we had been discussing a document to provide to the district that district staff would be able to use to sort of simplify and streamline their updating and reporting process. So rather than having to generate something from scratch, there would be a template that contains all of the goals and objectives and the action items from the management plan, so they can just write in a number or check a box for whatever thing is achieved. What I would like to do is just screen share that to give everyone a quick visual idea of how that looks and potentially get some feedback. Since now we have an approval of the waste reduction specialist position in particular, it would be good to also have this prepared for whomever takes that role to be able to have a document already defined for working through that. So this is what we put together, where there's essentially two main sections. One is the recurring information. So this is goals and objectives that have a periodic nature. So there are, as you can see, a list of them. They're color coded by each of the four categories: the education, source reduction, waste diversion, and final disposal facilities. And then so each goal has a blank here, and then the target number of things next to it, and then a field just for filling out general information, so descriptions or notes or whatever, so that every month each goal or objective that has a monthly actionable item can just be filled out for that month. And then similarly, there are a few that are quarterly reports. So for each quarter, there's a section for those items. And then, as you would imagine, there's a semi-annual, so twice a year. And then finally, we go to all the way to the end of the year. There's some things that are just annual objectives. So those would be filled in there. So that's how all of the recurring components would go. And then there's also goal-based metrics, where it's not something that has like a linear time related aspect, but just sort of milestones or major achievements among them. So those are in a separate section where they can just be filled in as they're achieved over time. And then I did populate all of the goals and objectives from the management plan into this document, so that basically every SMART goal that exists is listed here so that it can be reported on. So we haven't officially approved or adopted anything, but this is, I think, what I would call a near final draft of it. So I thought it would be interesting and valuable to get feedback on this. We could actually probably better handle the new business, but this is kind of the report on this particular working group's activities. So any questions on that report? All right.
Wait, Joe,
Oh, I'm sorry, you are there. Yes, go ahead, Ryan.
that's right. Where do you have it housed?
So this currently lives on my personal Google Drive account and is shared with subcommittee members. So I can provide a link to it or move it to somewhere in the Dropbox and can share that. Let's see. I can share it in the chat right now if you're interested in seeing it live on your device. Is that the nature of your question?
Oh.
Then I can copy the link. I can see if I can find the chat. I think I'm going to stop my share a moment.
Yeah.
Chat.
That one line on the bottom there, landfill profitability. It got me thinking, at what point in time if you know. Does the landfill stop producing whatever minimal methane or other inert gases that it might be doing?
There are, you can't definitively predict or answer that.
Okay.
There's engineering models out there that predict that, but you know, that's all also based on standard by the book landfill construction and operation over the lifespan.
Yeah.
And so depending, you know, if the cover was 12 inches one day instead of the 6 inches that is normally done, that's going to slightly change the degradation of the material. I can say that we looked at doing recapturing 10 years ago. Larry was still here.
Yes.
And at that point, based on all the models that we looked at, we had already passed peak production landfill gas because we closed prematurely and we're a small facility.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I saw that and then it sparked my travels out to Virginia where they have their Mount Trashmore outside of Virginia Beach. And they have actual recreational activities going on. So.
Well, and I think that's the purpose of that goal plan. That's what we discussed when we were putting the plan together was, you know, what kind of, you know, activities can we put out there or we can make that available for somebody else to do, that whether financially or not, prove a benefit to the district and or the community.
And so in all that, my brain may be ADD, I don't know. But I happen to see blowing snow, making a ski area and somebody coming down and hitting one of our gas vents.
Well,
You know, and that's what made me think about it.
I mean, obviously, you know, the required ongoing monitoring and maintenance is something that you have to take into account. And, you know, and if we wanted to put a golf course out there, ski slope, sledding hill, I mean, we're still at a point in all of that where IDEM would have to approve that.
When did it close again? 2000
Certified in 2008.
2008, okay, so there's a minimum 30-year closure, post-closure monitoring and maintenance requirement.
Yeah, which doesn't mean that we can't do anything out there, just means IDEM has to sign off on that.
If I may, I mean, that did wrap up our report on the subcommittee. That does bring us into new business just in terms of process and procedure. I think we can pick that up as an item of new business. If there's anything else particular that anyone else wanted to discuss about the landfill. So, yeah, new business item.
There's a lot of space south of what road is that? Anderson Road. Have been looked at in the past to be a public park for the county. I think there were issues with what flooding? Okay, yeah.
That all the land that we own south of Anderson Road is in the floodplain, as well as the west or southeast corner of the landfill proper.
Okay.
Which is why we're now farming trees there.
Yeah, I think on Google Maps, it's just growing up fields of trees now.
They used to try to farm it.
Yeah, we do have, there's somebody that lives in that area nearby does, he mows that property, the Shiloh Road property is what we call it, because that's road. He basically bush hogs that and bales it twice a year. Uses that for feed his cattle. We're doing something worthwhile.
Yeah, glad something's happening there.
I did personally like the suggestion of like a recreational area / like recreational informational, if we were to be able to. You know, it's not exactly a tourism thing, but just to have informational aspects of the landfill and having it be a sort of natural pedestrian space.
Yeah,
I think that would be a neat model.
Well, with it having all those trees in there, you know, it's gonna suck up a lot of water, so you can actually set foot on the ground.
That'd be good.
Depends on the time of year.
Right after the floods, man.
I mean, there's certainly things that could be looked at, and we previously have talked with County Parks and Rec, and they had a laundry list of ideas, and they just didn't have the funding to implement anything. So that's, one of the big, sticking points on any of it is it's going to cost money to set anything up who's ponying up the money. Not that can't be overcome and figured out, but that's going to be one of the biggest obstacles doing anything out there. We will also, right now, if we were considering something out there with allow public access to the facility, there's some security issues that the district would need to take care of to make sure that our leachate treatment plant is not accessible. The pond's not acceptable. If somebody dumps a bunch of bleach in that pond, that's gonna kill all the bugs in our treatment plant. And, so there's, things that we would have to do to ensure that the public could disrupt what we still have going on out
I have another item on new business if we're done with this.
Yeah, are there any other comments on the landfill use discussion? All right, yes, please.
When Ryan and I went to the solid waste conference 2 months ago now, I'm not sure if you were standing there or not. I talked to the director of Porter County Solid Waste Management District. Did you bring this up at the last meeting?
I didn't, but I'm glad you were.
Oh, okay. I have a letter here I wanted to read from Dwayne Davison and Walt Breitinger, who are part of the Porter County CAC. We, the Citizens Advisory Committee of the Recycling and Waste Reduction District of Porter County, Indiana, are troubled by legislation known as House Enrolled Act number 1053, passed by the Indiana General Assembly in 2016. That statute in effect prohibits governmental subdivisions such as cities and counties from banning, prohibiting, or restricting by law the manufacture, distribution, sale, or use of single-use plastic bags or auxiliary containers designed for one-time use. We are both eager to share information and to find like-minded citizens and waste reduction and recycling boards who might wish to join us in an attempt to repeal or revoke this ill-advised statute. Please contact us if you would like to see this ban changed, or if you know any legislators who might be willing to support this effort. I thought it might be worthwhile to invite them to maybe speak at our next meeting via Zoom, or maybe not our next meeting, but a future meeting, just to hear what all they're working on and how we might be interested in getting involved.
I think that sounds terrific.
I can add a little bit more to that. This was actually discussed at the Association of Solid Waste District Board meeting a couple of weeks, I guess last day. And they believe that they have a legislator representative that is willing to put their name on proposed legislation that would repeal or supersede the ban law. That's the lame.
Yeah.
That's the layman's way to put this, the ban law. And just so that people in this room are aware, that House Enrolled Act was pretty much a direct response to the city of Bloomington trying to ban plastic bags.
Yeah, I am a strong supporter of opposing the and the preemption regulation. Essentially, would also be interested in hearing what they have to say if they have anything.
But it's, it sounds like they've continued to work on this, push this, since you talked with her at the meeting or at the conference. And so I know that's part of the reason that she was there with that letter at the conference, was to see if other districts and or their CACs interested in working with their CAC on trying to further this.
It'd be neat to see how another CAC acts or does their business. Communicating with them in general on subjects.
You might find out you're doing it all wrong.
So there's no objections. I might reach out to their CAC and see if they'd be willing to talk at a future one of our meetings.
I think it's a great idea.
Uh,
I mean, that's the thing, even though it started in Bloomington and that's our ban is what got banned, you know, this is a home rule state last I checked. And so this kind of a law seems to fly right in the face of that. And I think that, you know, with democracy, it's coalition building, right? Like, so yeah, let's talk to every CAC in the state, for goodness sakes, right? And at least half of them are going to be on board with supporting something like this. And you know, that's what gets it, is getting more people on board. So thank you for this, Andrew. And yeah, I definitely agree with following up.
Great. We'll do that.
Thanks, Andrew. Glad you mentioned it too, because I had heard mention of that and wanted to hear more about it. So it's good to know that that's what that is, and
Yeah.
be able to learn some more. All right, any other items of new business not previously brought up? There aren't any. I would just like to follow up on the 5-year plan reporting document that was presented. Are there any thoughts or feedback on the strategy or the structure of the plan or that particular document?
I think it looks fantastic. Yeah.
Great,
I like it too.
good.
I didn't read it.
Oh, it wasn't distributed. This came up spontaneously on new business, so it was just mostly the glance to see what it looks like, just knowing that that's what's inside it. If that sparked any thoughts on anything else that would be of value.
Can you mail that to me? I'd
Yes.
like to share that with a couple of staff members that would probably be looked at to complete good sized chunks of that.
Okay,
Oh, you talking about what you just had up there?
yes.
Oh, okay.
Forgive me. I can share it again if that would help.
Yeah, that I liked. Sorry, it's been a long day.
Of course. Yeah, so I think what I'll do is I will upload this to the IEG subcommittee folder on the CAC Dropbox. I think it's the most logical place for it now that I actually thought about it.
I didn't realize you were calling that a 5-year plan.
So this is the 5-year plan reporting document. So it's essentially all of the goals and objectives out of the 5-year plan for the district to be able to use for reporting purposes. Just a very super simple summary of what is to be done and how far the progress is on achieving that. So hopefully it will also help be able to provide some clarity on like a rough estimate on how far we are through the 5-year plan process, since we are already, I think, 1.25 years through the total duration since it was adopted. So that's about a quarter of the total life of the plan. So see if we're a quarter of the way through completing it, or at least.
I can fairly confidently state no.
We have a couple of big things checked off, and we have a couple more things coming and a new position to help manage that. So
Yeah. The waste, and that's the purpose of it, the waste reduction specialist position will really put us in a position to start moving forward with big chunks of the plan and goals.
okay, without any further feedback, then I think that would be good to provide to you, Tom, or make available to you to share with staff.
Yeah, if you put it in Dropbox and IEG, then I can get to that.
Okay, great. All right, any other new business items for today? All right, seeing none, that is the end of our new business. That does bring us to public comment, though I do not see any members of the public present on Zoom or in the room. So that will bring us to our last item, which is adjournment. So if there is no objection, we will adjourn. I see none, and I will just note that our next meeting will be Thursday, December 15th, in the same place. We will adjourn. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Cannot attend that meeting, so I will be sending out a request for anybody who's able to take or interested to take the minutes. Since we thought it would be best for first taking the minutes to be here rather than me to do it via the recording. So just be looking out for that. I'll send it the next week.
Thank you, Lily.
Yeah.
I think about being ready to serve as secretary for next month.
Apologize for my tardiness. It's just hard to get here some days. If this meeting started at 5:30 instead of 5:15.
I say after watching Brian type at the
Yeah, nice.
consultant update, that's your note taker right there.
There you go. Dangerous to be skilled at being a secretary.
I might be sick next month. I don't know.
Talked to your wife, she said that was already Xed out. It wasn't gonna happen.
I did get your text, by the way. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Ryan. I'm gonna close it down.
Thanks, everybody.